Welcome to the Intuitive Inc. radio show live with your host, Servet Hasan, with another inspiring author who can help you discover your true potential. Live on ClearSource Radio.
Hello, everybody. It is indeed Sunday night, and I am Servet Hasan, and this is the Intuitive Inc. radio show. Tonight, we are going to hit a bunch of hot topics that are very relevant for today. Technology, time travel, data collection, climate control, politics, which is heavy right now, evolution of consciousness. I definitely want to talk about that, and that's because I have someone that can bridge all of those topics and more. Her name is Raimo. She has been in the radio business for like forever, since at least 2005, and for 2 decades she did the Raimo show, where she interviewed some of the biggest names in alternative research. She's got some biggies on there, trust me. I just listened the other night when she I listened to a bunch of shows. I could go on and on about those, but they were people that have done alternative health, ancient history. I found out the definition of a UFOologist and whistleblowers, all kinds of interesting people. So we're going to get right into that. And Hillary's not only an author, she's written a book, obviously. That's why she's on the show. The Raimo Show transcripts. But other than that, she's also a Reiki master and an award-winning artist and photographer. Welcome, Hillary. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this show, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about all these fantastic things.
Oh, thank you. I mean, honestly, I'm so honored. You have done, I think, you compiled some transcripts from your show. You narrowed it down to 20, which I'm not sure how you did, but I think you've logged in over 700 hours on the radio. So you're a pro.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you are. But you're not just that. You are. You definitely are. I read the book. I read the interviews, and they're awesome. And I have to say, I think one of the people that put it best was John St. Augustine, who wrote the foreword for the book, and he's a best-selling author himself and also an award-winning radio show host. And he said when you read these transcripts of 20 of these shows you've done over the years, that it's almost like it's transformation by association. And I loved that, because it is. It kind of, it really is.
Well, it is. I mean, radio, I think everybody who does radio experiences that to some degree. In fact, it's not even just radio. You can get it from a book or, it's just amazing how somebody puts something out there and other people pick it up. It's transference of a lot, I guess, energy, information, I don't know, knowledge, somebody's life experience. I just think it's a beautiful process. It's like the creative process when you're an artist. Whatever inspires you or educates you or entertains you to lift up that paintbrush and paint that painting, or start the first sentence of a book that's been living inside of you forever. It really has to have that catalytic type energy behind it in order to push it out. And I love doing it. It's just something I live for. So when people ask me what I do, I have a very hard time answering that question, because I feel like I do a lot.
Well, I think what you do, after I read the book, looked at your website, looked at some of the artwork you've done, the photography that you've done, where you've gone in nature and just, you're touching it personally. I think what I got from all of that was, and it reminded me of what I try to do as a writer. I've written 3 books for Llewellyn Worldwide, and is that you're a truth seeker. You really tell the truth, and it comes out in your work, period. I mean, I can see that. Do you feel that?
Well, I mean, when I started my show, I had just gotten through David Icke's body of work. And this was back in the early 2000s when he really wasn't as well known as he is now. And I was getting through it because I had been prompted to do it by my spiritual teacher at the time, Lynn Andrews, and she had recommended that I go read through it. So that's what started my radio show. And then over the years, as I got to talking to people, I had these profound conversations once a week for 13 years over 700 hours of recording time. I started in terrestrial radio in upstate New York, AM talk show radio, and then I eventually moved over to online radio, and then I stayed there, and my show still plays on my original network, Achieve Radio, as a syndicated rerun show. And I don't know, I kind of lost your question in all that, but that's kind of how it all has transpired.
Well, I think... No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think that you were trying, I think, to find your own truth. I think, I know you I read the interview you did with Lynn Andrews, too, in here, because you went to her mystery school, and that's what kind of started all of this. But I think you were looking for a higher consciousness, and you were looking for your own truth, and it evolved into that and led to...
In fact, so the just truth-seeking part of it came in because of David's work. And David's work kind of opened up my psyche, if you will, and let in alternative perspectives on things that were going on in the world that I perhaps hadn't noticed or seen or understood before. Mm-hmm. So the truth-seeking aspect of it came out in my radio show because I had all this information dumped into my awareness over the course of 2 years that I studied. I really didn't read anything else except his work. And so the truth-seeking part of it came in form of a radio show for me because I thought, well, what am I going to do with this information? How am I going to take this information and move it out into the world? I mean, what do I do with it now, really, is what I was saying to myself. So truth-seeking became kind of a thing of finding information. At the time, alternative health was big. People were just starting to really kind of come mainstream about energy medicine, and there were so many great people doing it at the time. So there was kind of a renaissance or a blossoming of information coming out, and I felt that the truth-seeking aspect of that was to do a radio show for me. That was my tool. Not everybody has the same tool in getting information out or truth-seeking. And at the time, truth-seeking really was a valid thing. I mean, we really had to go out and find the truth of the world and what was happening and why it was happening. And so I felt the medium that I chose to use for myself to move that information out was radio. And over the years, my voice grew, and I got more comfortable on the air, and I made less mistakes on the air, and I didn't sound like a newbie, amateur, rambling person going on about stuff. It became... Yeah, I grew in it, and it was my spiritual path. And talking to all these people over the years in that energy of truth-seeking really has transformed my life in many powerful and wonderful ways. And I have absolutely no regrets. I think truth-seeking now is a little bit misunderstood because it's become more of a mudslinging contest and how we can tear people down and stuff. We have to really remember to stay true to the integrity of truth-seeking, which is about going to the bottom or finding the things that we need to find to better ourselves and to make ourselves more aware of our full potential. And as long as we stay aligned with that, really you can't go wrong. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's essential that we stick to our truth and not try to push our truth onto other people's truth, but to just open up people to new ways of seeing things. And that's what I believe it is, that so you didn't start out, Hillary, to say, oh, I want to do a radio show. That wasn't what happened. Right?
No, not really, because I was interviewed on somebody's show in the beginning when I first went on to radio. I really liked it. I really liked the whole energy of it. I liked the conversation. I felt like it was really just a beautiful way to express yourself and information and share. And I had a great person who had done my interview. And so I felt very safe and very content with the space. And so it opened up a really nice venue for the conversation. And the conversation felt really good, and the feedback on the show was great. And so I said, well, I could probably do this because I really liked it. You know how when you do something you're meant to do, you get all warm and fuzzy?
You do. You do.
Yeah, you feel the connection to something.
Yeah, exactly.
And if fun. If that's what you're meant to do,
that's
it manifests.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's fun. It's like it's play almost, right? I mean, it's work.
It can be, yeah, it can be. I mean, sometimes there's a really bad echo. I don't know if you can hear it on your end, but I have a very bad echo on my end. Okay. Well, I think it's fun as long as you're having fun. I mean, there were some shows I did over the years that were very serious shows. For example, I interviewed one of the Louisiana doctors right after the oil spill, and the things that we had to talk about were the health symptoms that were showing up from all the chemicals dumped into the Gulf and around the Gulf. The people who live there were really exposed to some really nasty things, and the government wasn't doing anything to help them. So in this book, I have the 2-hour special that I did on the Gulf oil spill, which had 7 or 8 different guests from all walks of expertise and perspective. And I hoped to offer my audience an insightful show that would open up their awareness into maybe some things that needed more attention than what it was getting. And this doctor did a fantastic show of really just exposing the truth of the symptoms of the diseases that were showing up and the contamination and all of that. And it's something we really need to talk about. So those are hard shows. So fun wasn't really, I don't know, I wouldn't make that the main word for that show, but it was important. I think important would be the word I would use. It was an important show, and I was so honored to be able to document that because we didn't hear much about it in any other format. Mainstream media wasn't talking about things, which they often don't, that they don't want to give attention to. And a perfect modern-day example of that would be the Standing Rock protests over the pipeline. You know, I actually traveled to North Dakota to check it out myself and to do one-on-one interviews with people who were there. I got a lot of great footage, but I also got a lot of great insight into the realities of what was going on. So when I looked at whatever media outlet you choose, because it's now these days, it's not just TV. Anytime you connect to a signal on any device, you're connecting into the information realm, if you will. And we weren't hearing much about that. So a lot of the shows over the years were fun and great and insightful, but were also really maybe what people would consider a little more heavier topic or important shows that really needed to come out. I was really, really honored and happy to be able to cover the full spectrum. So, you know, one night I might do a show on healing energy and what that means, and then the next show would be on political whatever.
Right.
See,
exactly.
I would flip-flop all over the place into different topics, and I feel that I have a very unique set of life experience, and I think all radio hosts who do what I do, yourself included, would have that same qualification, that life experience that shows, well, hey, you know, I talked about this, and then I started to tie it all in when I chose the 20 conversations in this book, because that was a massive task.
Oh.
And it was extremely difficult for me to choose because I had so many wonderful, fabulous guests over the decade that I was on the air. And how do you refine that down to 20 conversations? Well, here's how I did it. I looked around the world today, and I made note of what is important. What are we looking at right now, and how could my shows help give some hindsight value or perhaps connect the dots in a way that people wouldn't normally think? Because I have a strong opinion that what goes on in the collective platform today is very much rooted in a lot of the information that was coming out over the time frame that I was doing my radio show. So data privacy, data breaches, technology, all of those things are very important and prominent today, but we've lost sight a little bit of how invasive the privacy laws have really become, especially since 9/11. So I took it upon myself to pick some of the people that went into those areas, because putting that into a book and making it something people can read and slow digest instead of listening to live radio. And as you know, live radio can sometimes be fun and distractive, and people have to keep up with the conversations, and maybe my voice does or doesn't resonate with somebody, and we get caught up in personalities and and sounds and distractions and technical difficulties. But when you have a book and you're a reader reading the information, it's a much different experience. And to test that theory of mine, I put out a couple transcripts that I didn't put in this book on my blog and asked for reader feedback. And that was exactly what the reader's feedback was that it was better in many ways to read the information because you could actually sit with it, pause it, and take your time through it, digest it, go Google, look up things as it hits you while you're reading. And that's my hope. That was my hope for the book. I was hoping that it would be a re-release of information, a re-release of shows. People have certainly heard them over the years, but it's not the same thing as hearing them. Reading them is much different. And I distinctively chose the order of which the chapters are presented in order to weave a thread of information through the topics themselves. So you're going to go through like a roller coaster of information as you go through the book, and I have put in much reprieve. There's a lot of reprieve in the book, meaning that, you go through some hard chapters, like Judy Wood's is very difficult. Both her shows are in this book because they were so important. And you're going through 9/11 material, and you're going through some of the things that she suggests, which can be a little hard for somebody to read for the first time. Or maybe you've already heard it, but you haven't quite read it this way. People who have already known this information, a lot of the feedback was, well, wow, I really knew this, but I didn't know it to this extent, or I learned something new. And that's kind of how it's all set up, so that when you read it, or maybe even reread it, you get that transference, you get that association, you get the mirror of listening, watching, hearing, interacting with the conversation. And the hope is that it will, the light will slip in through the cracks somehow and loosen up some of the reality perspectives that a reader might have, and change some of the ways that they see things happening today. And I so far that's been happening, and I'm really, really excited to hear that from some of the feedback I've gotten.
Exactly. This is a direct quote from your book, the Hillary Raimo show transcripts that we're discussing. You said that you're offering difficult information to break down the established story so people can think for themselves. And that I thought was great, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're not saying this is, how you're not offering opinion. You're just giving difficult information, and then people can think for themselves. And you even did that with Judy Wood, as you said, right? I mean, you're giving the information. I did. You did, because I remember at the end of that interview, you said something along the lines of, at the very end, you were signing off. She said, thank you, goodbye, whatever. And you said, everybody listening, it's up to you to really figure out what the truth is. Use your heart, use your intuition. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but it was very much along those lines. And to guide you through that's really the only advice that you had for them, because there's a lot of information. So use your own heart and your own intuition to guide you through that. I loved that, because there is some very difficult information in here, as well as some fun.
Well, free thinking is sometimes a rare commodity these days, especially because we're always told what to think. We're always given opinions, and we're put in front of experts, and the experts are usually cherry picked from the industry by the industries themselves. So how do we really know what to think and feel? And so we're always told what to do. And so my hope is that this book is not about me, but yet it's my work, right? It's my body of work, but yet it's not about me or what I believe. It's also not really about what my guests believe either, but it's just information. Information itself, I guess, is pretty neutral until you add some kind of emotional flavor to it, or you make an opinion. So I really hoped, and I appreciate that feedback, because I had really hoped when I wrote it that people would read it and they would just be given the information on a silver platter, and what they did with it was really up to them. I mean, they can just say, oh, yeah, I know this. Great. This confirms what I know. Well, that's great. Or they can say, well, I didn't even know about any of this. It sparks a curiosity, perhaps, or it sparks an energy for them to go and to research it and find out more, read more about it, and ask better questions. And that, I think, is the only thing I can do at this time in my life. It's like the only thing I can really do is offer something up, and people can either take it or leave it, and they have to learn what resonates with them. And so why not do it with my book? Why not learn how to do that better? And that's my goal, is to just offer up information and say, here, what do you think about this? and have people free think their way through it instead of say, well, I read so-and-so's or I did this and so-and-so says this. I mean, I hear that so much, and I'm like, well, what do you think? Oh, well, what do you mean? I read this expert, and this expert says it. And I said, well, that's great, but what do you think? A lot of people can't answer that question. They have a hard time. So
I know.
The free thinking aspect is important.
It's very important because I have people, they'll say to me, well, the opposite of love is fear, because that's what it says in the Course in Miracles, and that's what they're studying at the time, or they believe that. And that's fine. I have no problem with that at all, and I like the Course in Miracles, but I'll say, well, that's not true for me. And they'll go, what? I'm like, the opposite of fear, love is not fear. The opposite of love is hate. The opposite of fear is peace of mind, to me. So just because somebody has said that doesn't mean I'm going to go into that. I've studied with a lot of gurus. I've been out just like you have. You've explored many spiritual paths along the way. And for me, over time, I come to understand that the opposite of love is hate, and the opposite of fear is peace, or more specifically, peace of mind. So, think for yourself. Think what resonates with you, not just because that's what that book says, and you've got to believe that. Take the information and then think for yourself about it. How does that feel to you? And connect with your own intuition and your own heart, which you talked about, I like that.
It's important stuff. And reconnecting our intuition to nature and to other people and to ourselves and trusting that gut feeling. I mean, we're still learning how to navigate that in a lot of ways. We've come far. I've seen a lot of growth in people, and including myself. We're always evolving and growing through the things that we experience, and everybody's life path is different, and what resonates with one may not resonate with another. And hey, guess what? That's okay.
Right.
And we don't always have that mirror. We don't always have the mirror that it's okay. A lot of times we have the mirror of, well, you have to either take sides, believe this or believe that. And it just creates division, and it creates separation. And, my feeling of love is feeling love and expressing that feeling of love and sharing that feeling of love in whatever way it inspires you to share. And, you open yourself up for acceptance or rejection. And a lot of times, if you get that acceptance, then the love grows. If you get the rejection, then the love wilts like a flower, right? But it never really goes away. It's just an opportunity to express it. So if you ever want to start an argument with people, you can pick up from a few topics, such as love, God, or politics.
Exactly.
It will always start some kind of severely segregated conversation about what everybody thinks about it and how right they are. So people spend more time talking about things in order to prove that they're right instead of just allowing a conversation to organically grow in the form of blank slate. I mean, how many people do we meet in the course of our day where we allow a conversation to grow from a blank slate? We've already decided what we think about the person we're going to talk to, whether we like them or not, whether we believe them or not. We've already made these preconceived ideas. Then we have an idea of what we're going to talk about because, I can't wait to get back on that subject and prove me right? And we miss the magic, the synchronistic magic that can take place. I have been very, very, very fortunate to work with some incredibly gifted creative teams in my life. And I think that the favorite of mine is to be a part, to sit at the table where everybody can come together and offer up their ideas, and everybody just rolls them around in their own head and lets it, let me think about that. And the feedback is always different. And so I don't know if I'm making any sense, but the conversation style.
It's true. That brainstorming and that freedom to brainstorm is what creativity is based on, not holding back. One of my teachers was Terry Cole Whitaker, who was back in the 80s, was huge. And her first bestseller was "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business." And I never forgot that. It's kind of like, I have to kind of
that's a pretty important statement, and I think it's right on still today.
Absolutely.
And if people just embrace that, we'd be much better off. I mean, who cares what people think about you or me? I mean, I can't. If I sat here and spent my day worrying about what people think of me, I get nothing accomplished.
Well, yeah, I'd be dead.
I
would. I mean, I couldn't, because I have to have that. I can't come to my creativity with that aspect at all. I just write what I'm told to do, and I run with it. And I think that's where the best ideas come from too, even when you, with your team, even when you're sitting around, you're not afraid to say something that you think might sound stupid, because it could be the most brilliant thing ever. You just don't know. You got to throw it out there. And that can spark. Go ahead.
I got more and more successful. I just think that's a really important point. I got more and more successful with my ability to do so, and got invited to bigger and bigger, seats to sit at the table, because I had no filter. I didn't hold back on anything. The only time I would hold back on something or a project is if I couldn't, because I always usually come on as a visionary. They always bring me on as a visionary. And I'll sit there and I can't see the vision. If I can't see the vision, I'm the wrong visionary to be working with you. So there have been some times where I just open my mouth up and I just, this doesn't make any sense. And what's the bigger picture here? And if I can't see it, then I have to be honest and I have to tell them, I don't see the bigger picture with this company right now. Right. Oh, okay. So maybe you need a different visionary to come in and who can see it, and I'm just not the right fit for you. And those things always actually go fine. It's like, okay. And they actually appreciate the fact that I speak up and say that. Because if you hold yourself back in any situation, whether it's a relationship you have with anyone, whether it's a family member, a spouse or a child or a neighbor or a friend, if you hold back, are you really being authentic in the moment? Probably not. So if you're not being authentic and speaking your mind to whoever has your attention at the moment and is in your space, then aren't you disrespecting the now moment and disrespecting all the synchronistic magic that comes out of it, that we as human beings are rightfully, we're entitled to that. We're entitled to strong, beautiful, poignant connections with other people. And if you're not getting that, then you have to really look at why and what part of you isn't being authentic, or what part of the person you're trying to engage with isn't authentic. And if they're not in that space, then that's okay. Maybe you'll cross paths again and figure out what's going on later on. It's just not the right moment. I have always learned that synchronicity is my best guide, and I will find my way to exactly what I need to be involved with. Everybody always says, well, what do you do? And I'm like, God, I can't explain it. You have an hour? Because I do a lot.
Yeah, actually, we only have
it doesn't ever feel like work.
I know.
None of it ever feels like work.
No.
Okay? 9 to 5 cubicle work, I think, is the death sentence for the human psyche. It's also the killer murderer of creative energies, and it really takes a toll. I mean, I worked a cubicle job for years early on, and I come from business psychology, real estate, insurance background, so there were years that I had to sit, and I swear to God, I thought I was going to die. I mean, I had all kinds of health issues pop up. I wasn't living my truth. I had to make a paycheck to pay the bills. So, I mean, I had to do this. So I had to make peace with the fact that, well, I might not be doing what I really want to do at this moment, but this is getting me to where I need to go, until the one day where I just had to leave, and I did. And I packed up my box, and I walked out of my office, and I started my own life, my own business, and just haven't looked back since.
Yay!
And it's funny how when you start doing that, everything starts to click into place. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, having the right conversations with the right people, and everything just starts to click, click, click right across the board. And that is where we really know we're on the right path, and if you embrace that, then it will continue. It's when you doubt it, or when people say, oh, I don't know. You do know. You do know. You go sit in a place that inspires you until the answer comes. That's the only way to get those gremlin doubt voices out of your head, because they don't belong there. Somebody else put them there, and those doubt voices really don't belong to you. They belong to something in your growing up years, or they belong to something that, you know, you have going on. Somebody has somewhere along the line told you that you're not worthy of fill in the blank.
Exactly.
And you believed it.
Exactly. You know, that's the story of, I did that too. I was in corporate America, and, you know, it's not easy, and did it for years. I was raising a young daughter by myself as a single parent, and did what I had to do, and wrote every night from 10 to midnight while she was sleeping, and, you know, kept thinking, how long do I have to do this? And you just do what you got to do. I just did it every day, and somehow, till I got to the point where I thought I was going to die, just like you know, and then pack up your
and
desk.
And then something clicks, right? And you find yourself at a crossroads.
Right.
And you have to make the decision yourself. Nobody can make it for you.
Right. And
you have to decide which way you're going to go.
Exactly. And you have to be in that state of consciousness where you can do it without the doubts, because otherwise you end up right back where you were. You have to get that level of consciousness where, you know, I'm going to trust, I'm going to have faith, I'm going to follow the intuition, let synchronicity guide me, and know I'm going to be okay. And then you're right, it's those little gremlins, that fear that stops people, and then they repeat the same lesson over again until you get it. You know, the universe is infinitely patient. It will keep giving you the same lesson again and again. So once you get that, then you can move forward. So I'm proud of you. I mean, that's great that you could do that. Pack your desk up and move and go, and then start your own radio show and be where you are today. I mean, you wouldn't be there otherwise.
I mean, it happens again and again and again. And then when you start to realize that the same situations all have the same flavor, oh, you're just a different person, but the same things are happening. Right. That's when you really start to move it. And nobody can, and you can go to somebody and say, what's going on? And they can point it out to you. But until you internalize it as a reality, nothing's going to change. Yes. And then once you get on the other side of it, well, I hate to tell people who haven't got there yet, but this is even more important, is you begin to realize your full human potential, the power of it, and how careful you have to be in using your intent, because it can be so misused, and we're not really taught how to nurture power correctly. We're taught power is something that means, you know, it's ego, it's this or it's that, or it's not good, we don't want anything to do with it. How many spiritual people have problems with money? I wrote a book about that. This book that came out is actually my third book.
Well, yes, you did.
So Money Matters for Mind, Body, and Spirit was my second book, and that came out 2005, right around the time when, like, you know, abundance and the law of attraction, Esther Hicks was coming out with all these books, and it was a big hit. I actually wrote this book before that came out. Nobody knows that, but I did. Yeah. And the power of attracting money and taking a look at the relationship that one person has with money could actually be a microcosm of bigger issues. So that was the intent of my book, was to take a look at money issues as a way to, you know, signpost your way to what else needs to be corrected in your life so that you can fix them. Right. Because if all the spiritual people on this planet were financially well off, we would have a much different world, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And you're right, because really the names can change, the people could change, the faces, you can even change cities. But if you're still coming from that same place consciously, you're going to repeat the same story over and over until you get it. Exactly. You know, we're halfway through the show. We're more than halfway through the show. So I am going to open the lines. If there's any brave callers out there that has a question for Hillary Raimo, call in now, 949-313-8880. Yeah, this has been a great show. I've got to say the name of the book again, the Hillary Raimo show transcripts. You've narrowed it down to 20 interviews you did over 700 hours of radio that you narrowed down into this one book of 20 interviews. It's fabulous. I've read it. I highly recommend it to all you people out there because it touches on so many subjects that are actually relevant today. I mean, Hillary, one of them was the ACLU Council for Data Privacy that you talked to. My daughter's a lawyer. She's 29 years old. She's in Manhattan. She went to the University of Pennsylvania Law School, and she'd love to work for the ACLU when her loans are paid off. But until then, I was looking at this, I read this, and you were talking about how LED lights are being used to implement an infrastructure on spy technology. I found this fascinating. I mean, you touch on so much in this book. Really, it's interesting.
Well, Chad's chapter, his show was a big hit. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I get interviewed about this book, pretty much every host asks me about this particular chapter, and I'm really glad they do, and I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is so important to understand the implications.
Right.
When LED lights first came out, and when I first started to interview him, I really had no idea we were going to talk about this. I don't script any of my shows. I never have, and I never will. And so when Chad came on, I really didn't know where he was going to go with it, but he started to talk about LED lights and how they are made with the ability to be turned into surveillance camera technologies. So the fact that, and he talks about this in the book, the fact that these LED lights can be put into public spaces to, quote, save money and be green and save energy, and it's better for the planet, and it helps climate change, and you should all be on board. What a brilliant marketing scam that really is.
Yeah.
I mean, you do save some money, right? People do see a little bit of difference in their electric bills, and so they go, ooh, yay, they're all excited, and now it's great for the planet, and they feel better about themselves, and they feel like they're contributing to the the happy making of the planet, right? I laugh because if you knew that the LED light systems were, able to spy on you in your home, in every room and everywhere you have them, would you be so excited about putting them into your private spaces? Now, it's said that most public spaces have LED lights. It's been changed and all this. And, the way Chad talked about this topic on the show, he implied that that's already pretty much happening, that every public space that has LED lights is equipped with a spy technology in the lights. So I was really shocked by that when he shared that on the show. And I said, well, what about people's homes? Because as a homeowner myself, we buy LED lights and put them in the house because we think we're saving energy and our bill's going to go down, and it does. And we've bought the whole hook, line, and sinker of climate change and helping to reduce our carbon footprint and all that. But, if we were somebody important, then what could happen is people can come into your home and change those, just add something to the light bulbs. Or if you're, a president and you go and stay in some hotel room and you have all LED light bulbs in your room, there's absolutely nothing stopping people who can implement those changes from doing so. Wow. So then you're sitting in a room and you're being spied on through the light bulbs.
Wow.
Now, if anybody else but Chad Marlowe, head counsel of data privacy at the ACLU, had said this,
I know.
Would I believe it? Would anybody believe it? But the fact that it comes from him and it's his own words is absolutely astoundingly important to me, and I want to tell the whole world. So picking his chapter was not difficult because I knew it's still a topic. Climate change, still a topic, and how much of a topic is it made because of the impending technologies that could potentially come in equipped with all of these things. Now, you have to remember, since 9/11, our privacy laws have changed drastically, and Chad gives a little insight into that as well in the chapter.
Right.
So I hope everybody reads that, and then I hope they all go talk to their friends and neighbors about it, and everybody gets the message here loud and clear that if you're not aware of what's going on, you're not aware of what's going on.
Right.
And until you know, you don't know.
Right. And it's good to know. So find out. And so that's why I brought it up, because I wanted people to know. And I was like, I'm going to bring it up. So I'm going to bring that one chapter up for sure. And I enjoyed it because it's true. Unless you know that. I didn't know that. I was shocked. Nope. And I was like, oh my God, this is important. We need people to know, So I loved that.
And then once you know, can't not know. So it's like once you know,
right.
and you've had your awareness open to this reality, then maybe you're just you have a little bit more of a different opinion of things. And, it really does open up the whole floor for a lot of different discussions. I mean, are we really being manipulated to that degree climate change? I mean, we see the climate changing around us, but we're not even talking about the cyclic patterns of the earth and the deep, long patterns of the earth. And the Mayans talked about it. They had a calendar, set up all around it. And so here we are, modern day humans, not having the right conversations. And the right conversations really should be coming from a more intuitive place, and we should really have this information. It's out there. You can Google it, but unless you know what to Google, you don't. You don't know it.
You won't. No, that's why your book is important, Hillary. I mean, honestly, the Hillary Raimo show transcripts, where can people find it? I mean, obviously on Amazon, but what's your website? Tell everybody out there.
Well, my website is my name, HillaryRaimo.com. You can find the book on Amazon, Amazon UK, Barnes & Noble, Lulu.com. There's different ways to find the book. It is in some local bookstores here where I live in upstate New York. And if you want, I'm going to be doing some book signings. Next weekend I'll be at the 49th Annual MUFON Conference in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'll have a booth set up in their vendor area signing some books and talking to people. And I really have tried, and thank you again for the feedback, to really offer a hodgepodge of topics that aren't just, picked without intent.
Right.
And I have really tried to weave them together to give a very clear message, and I guess people are getting it because that's been the feedback, and that's great.
No,
that I've done something with my life.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful from that aspect, and I'm glad you have. I'm going to spell your name for people. It's Hillary with 2 L's, HILLARY, and your last name is Raimo, RAIMO.com, for not only the book and everything we're talking about, but her art's on there too, her photography and her artwork, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And yes, because I did think, when you started, not just the ACLU Council, the data privacy thing, but you touch on Donald Trump, you touch on Bitcoin. I mean, I could do a whole show on what you were just talking about with the privacy laws, and that's a whole, I could go on for hours on that. So we're never going to get to everything I want to talk to you about. We're already running out of time. So I just suggest people go to your website and get your book. And if you are in the New Jersey East Coast area, I would go. I would just go to the book signing because I'd love to meet you.
Yeah, and for those people who are overseas, I will be in the UK in January at Lumley Castle with the Tom Campbell group. He's a former NASA physicist, and he's actually going to be writing the foreword for my next book, which is another transcript Part 2 book, and it's alternative health and metaphysics shows. So I'm designing that and putting that together right now. I will be over there if people would like to come meet me. I'm going to be doing a book signing there throughout his event. It will be open to the public, the vendor area, and you're more than welcome to come. But see, there's so much in this book, and you're right. We can't touch on it all in 1 hour.
No.
It's impossible. I've tried.
I know, you can't.
Shows,
yeah.
And really, it just doesn't do it justice. But I want to mention specifically Angela Kaufman's chapter. And her and I did a show together on the Trump phenomena, what was happening, the shadow of America, what needed to be healed, and how this was bringing up every single thing in the human psyche that really needs to be healed, because he just, no matter whether you like him or not, he's a mirror that gives an opportunity for a massive healing. And she did a fabulous job of talking about the American collective shadow. And so that chapter is really important and really relevant to what's going on right now, especially in the United States. And I think people would benefit from reading through it, because it may help, and it may make someone see the whole situation a little different. And then once we move it within ourselves, then, the magic that comes from healing really is that it moves things around us as well. But it's got to start within. So if people are having heavy reactions to politics, I can't blame you, but here's the magic. It's because you're supposed to be looking at this thing on a different level for yourself, and it's private work. And once you do it, then you're not hooked the same way you were when you didn't do it, right? And these kind of things that are offered up onto the collective platforms are kind of like sacrifices, if you will. And people really get so emotionally attached and involved with whatever hits the mainstream headlines that they often forget that that too is a mirror, and that you can intuitively walk through that information without getting stung or without feeling like your soul is being sucked out of your face, and you can survive it. And when you do, each time, a little bit more, a little more practice, oh, well, Donald Trump really triggered my victimization. That's what I hear from a lot of people. Well, of course he did, because he's a perfect mirror for that.
Right.
So then go sit or process or meditate or read or just disconnect until something shifts inside of you. That chapter is very helpful with this. So not only do I have a lot of disclosure type chapters or whistleblower type chapters, I have chapters in there that will help people process modern day current events such as the Trump phenomena and offer a different perspective on that. And I did that on purpose so that we would have, I don't know, some kind of reference to, hey, remember who you are, and get out there and be who you are and be the greatest manifestation or whatever of what you can be, and just start living your life and, do what you have to do. And if you're called into politics, maybe you're called into politics because you're supposed to be there to help shift it. So I think everything is relevant across the board.
Oh, I do too. That's one of the chapters that I tagged was Angela Kaufman's Healing the American Shadow in the Trump Age. And also the ACLU and also Lynn Andrews. There were quite a few. And then I realized, I'm just tagging every chapter. so that doesn't work. But yes, so that's why I highly recommend that just people read it. And I'm so glad that you're doing another book on the alternative health and metaphysics, because that's important too, because you do touch on time travel and things like that in here. But I'm glad you're going on, because I did read in your book too, in the foreword, that you started this book when you stopped doing the Hillary Raimo show, right?
Yeah, I had retired. I decided that, the same, I don't know, glow wasn't in it for me anymore. And I had worked for a couple different networks and just had some great experiences and some really bad experiences. And I just felt like what was happening to alternative media after Donald Trump went on Alex Jones' show early on in his campaign,
right?
I felt like alternative media was almost targeted in a very well executed, divide.
Yep.
And I just felt like everybody was starting to go after each other, and it was becoming very mucky, and people just had these bizarre theories about. So it just was a big turnoff to me. So I left, and I figured I had done my part. Now it was time for other people to do their parts, and I knew when to step down. So I stepped down, and then I was invited out to see the Masterpieces of the Earth collection, which is the world's largest to scale size mineral collection in the world, owned by Richard Berger. And so I went to see and to photograph this, and I just happened to be there on the summer solstice of last year. So it was kind of like meeting the grand old council of the earth. You're walking in and you have crystals the size of cars.
Oh, yeah.
And he's collected these specimens from all over the world, so it felt like I was in the presence of really old, ancient energies, which I was, but you could feel it. There was absolutely no doubt. And I said, well, I'm here to photograph and I'm here to experience, and this is beautiful, but what else? So I'm put out to the rocks. I said, okay, so I'm here. I heard the call. I'm here. So now what do you want? What do you want of me? How can I be of service to the earth? Because in 2014, I started a project called Love, Breathe, Earth, and it was a living experiential hypothesis on meditation, human love, and nature. And I gathered people around the world for 13 global meditations over the course of 2 years, and people were giving feedbacks of all kinds of things, and I collected it all on a page, and you can go to my website and find it. It's under projects. And so Love Breathe Earth turned into LBE Publishing, which I opened this year. So I'm putting my books out through my own publishing company, dedicated to the Love Breathe Earth project, really. And so my photographs and all that is all to honor nature and all of this and stuff. But I think what I really wish to take away from all this work is knowing when it's time to switch gears. And so when I retired, I asked this question of the crystal elders, and then I come back to New York, and the message hit me right in the face. Write this book. I was like, write this book. That's the message I get from the crystal elders. Okay, so I have to do it, I guess, right?
Right.
And it was a tremendous amount of work, because sifting through my entire body of work for 13 years, I realized quickly how poor of a job I kept it together. So I just needed to organize everything better. And so I organized better and put everything together, and that took a few months. And then the transcriptions themselves take time, and so it took about a year to put the book together. And that was my way of honoring my time on radio, giving a legitimacy to the legacy that I left behind. And if my grandkids or my own kids ever read it, they'll know, hey, I know what Mom was doing all these years.
Right.
And so it was really written for kind of like a testament, time capsule, if you will, of my body of work. I felt like it was a really great way to honor that. So for me personally, that's where I came from with it. And now I can see, having gone by the summer solstice and years past since I've been with those crystal elders, I can see what they had in mind now, because as I'm doing the book launch and the shows and the promotion, and I find myself having conversations with people like you, and it's like, oh, okay, so this was supposed to happen. Even I get a little surprised by it still, right? You know, I'm human. Mm-hmm. I'm not on a pedestal over there. I'm not a guru. I'm just an ordinary woman who had a calling and followed it and put together a bunch of great shows. And I was very fortunate to talk to all these people over the years, and some of them have gone on and become celebrities in their fields, and others have just don't even know what they're doing anymore. But at least I have that moment in time, and it's been recorded in a proper way. And I feel like if all alternative media did this, we have a really great library.
Oh, right. Exactly. But I did see on your website you're doing Yin Radio TV. Is that correct?
I did Yin Radio for 2 years. I started my own network.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was training, teaching, mentoring people to do their own radio shows, people who had never done it before. Mm-hmm. I was working with a bunch of people to help them find their voice and launch them out into the world as radio hosts. So Yin Radio TV for me at that point was a way to have my own network where I could expand. I didn't do as much with it as I had originally planned on doing, because, you know, fate had different plans for me. But I did found it, and it is out there, and it's on YouTube and different places. And so if you see a Yin Radio TV sign, that's me.
That's you. It is, and it's on your website, too, which is Hillary Raimo. It's HILLARYRAIMO.com. There's a bunch of beautiful things on there, too, because you are beyond just being a radio show host. You're an earth advocate. You're a catalyst for love. You're just a lover of life. All those things are on your website too. A starseed germinator. I wanted to ask about that, but we're out of time and I can't. And I have to tell you one thing. I just want people to go to your website. I'd love them to get your book, The Hillary Raimo Show Transcripts. And if I ever do transcripts of this show, Intuitive Inc., this show will be in that book. For sure.
Fantastic. I hope I start a movement. I don't think anybody has done this yet. I'd like to say I'm the first person who's done alternative radio and put their transcripts into a book. If I start a trend, fantastic. Oh, God, I hope everybody does it. And I really do mean it when I say we should have a library of this information. And if anybody ever has a hard time finding a publisher, come talk to me. I will publish you through my publishing company, because I know how important it really is to get this information out there and offer it to people without the censorship of mainstream publications.
Exactly. And that's what you do with your radio show. Now you're moving forward with the books and your own publishing company. Hillary Raimo, I am so honored to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I could do this again. I could do do this 10 times over and probably not get to everything. I love you, and I just keep doing the work, okay?
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure. It's gone by so fast, which means it's been great.
It has. I know it has. And I feel kind of sad. I'm like, wait, it's over? It's over?
Well, we can always do a part two. I mean, we can always do part two. I think that the best radio shows are the ones that go by really fast, and you're enjoying the conversation, you're enjoying the topics. And I hope the audience has enjoyed it as well. Really, I do.
Me too. We didn't have any callers, but that's okay because they probably, then I get 9 million emails the next day. So if they want to contact you, can they do that at HillaryRaimo.com as well?
Yes, they can.
Yeah,
they can contact me right on there,
good.
And I do reply. It might take me a little bit of time, but I do try to get to everybody. So
same here.
If you have a question and something comes up, even listening to the show or reading my book, I really do enjoy reader feedback, and I look forward to those emails, and I enjoy getting them. So please reach out to me and let me know what you think.
All righty. Thank you so much, and you have a good night. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Wow, what a great show, everybody. That's lovely. That was Hillary Raimo. She's a pro. You can tell she's a talk show host. Not a radio show host, but talking. I mean, that's what she does, and she does it well. But it's not just that. It's what she's saying. I mean, that's the most important thing of all. And she's got a lot to say. And she's talked to some brilliant people. And again, her name is Hillary Raimo. And I love the book, The Hillary Raimo Show Transcripts. And that's it for us tonight. I've got to tune out here any second now because we went longer than I wanted to. But she was such a great guest. I couldn't help it, and we didn't have any callers, but you can still contact her on her website, and you can contact me on mine, ServetHasan.com, ServetHasan.com, and my email there is servet@ServetHasan.com. A new website is coming at servet.hasan.com and .org. I own both of those, but they connect, and that there's a new website coming there, and there's a new Facebook fan page coming out. There's a lot of new things coming out in the fall, and I think we're moving to iHeartRadio at that time as well. So we've got a lot of new things, the blog, the podcasts, all that other stuff. And in the meantime, if you need me, email me, and then guess what I'm going to say? Because I say at the end of every show is be you to the full. We talked about that. We just touched on it, Hillary and I, a little bit about being your authentic self. And it's true because she talked about having to work in a cubicle, and I did too once upon a time, and the way you don't do that anymore is to be your authentic self. So be you to the full, everybody, because that's what's really, truly beautiful, and that's what brings your life together and brings whatever you need into it. And then synchronicity in the universe, God, the source, whatever you want to call it, kicks in for you. And boy, oh boy, when it does, it takes you places you never imagined going. Take care. Good night. Join me next week. Thank you.